I can hear the drill. That's what breaks through first. Not the pain, not the voices, but that mechanical grinding sound boring into my femur. I'm awake. I shouldn't be awake. The anesthesia wore off too early, and I can feel everything. This is my 8th surgery in 22 months, and I'm strapped to an operating table in Walter Reed while surgeons piece together what's left of my legs. Again. The explosion that should have killed me in Kandahar took both my legs from mid-thigh down, shattered my pelvis in 14 places, and left shrapnel embedded so deep in my spine that removing it might paralyze me completely. 3 doctors told me I'd never walk again. 2 told me I'd never stand. 1 told me I should be grateful to be alive and stop asking impossible questions. But none of them have a 5-year-old son named Michael who asks every single night on our video calls when Daddy's coming home to play catch. None of them made a promise to a little boy that they'd walk him to his first day of kindergarten. And none of them understand that I didn't survive that blast just to spend the rest of my life watching my son's childhood from a wheelchair. My right leg, what's left of it, is completely numb now. They've cut through so much nerve tissue that I can't feel anything below my hip. My left leg screams with phantom pain from a foot that isn't there anymore. The drill stops. Someone says something about complications. Someone else mentions infection. I try to speak, to tell them I'm conscious, but my throat won't work. All I can think about is Michael's last drawing he sent me. A stick figure with 2 complete legs standing next to a smaller stick figure, both holding fishing poles. He wrote in crayon at the bottom, "Me and Daddy when he comes home." The surgeon's voice cuts through my fog. "We might lose too much bone. He might never bear weight on this side again." That's when I decide, whatever they have to do, however many more surgeries it takes, however much pain I have to endure, I will stand again. I will walk again. I will keep that promise. Because some things are more impossible than dying. And letting your son down is one of them. If my story resonates with you, please hit the like button to bring a little light to this father's heart. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss my upcoming life stories, and tell me in the comments where you're watching this video from and what time it is there right now. It makes me so happy to know what corner of the country or world you're listening from. My name is David Martinez, and I'm 35 years old now. 7 years ago, I was Sergeant Martinez, 75th Ranger Regiment, on my 3rd deployment to Afghanistan. I wasn't supposed to be special. I grew up in El Paso, Texas, the son of a mechanic and a high school teacher. I enlisted at 19 because I wanted purpose, wanted to be part of something bigger than myself. By 28, I'd done 2 tours in Iraq and 2 in Afghanistan. I was good at my job, not exceptional, not legendary, just solid. I came home every time. I called my wife Angela every chance I got. I watched my son grow up in 15-minute video increments over spotty connections. I promised him I'd always come home. I promised him we'd do all the things I never got to do with my own father, who worked 70-hour weeks just to keep us fed. Fishing, baseball, teaching him to ride a bike, normal stuff, simple stuff, the kind of promises you make without thinking, because of course you'll keep them. Of course you will. On November 12, 2017, my convoy hit an IED on a routine patrol outside Kandahar. The blast was supposed to kill everyone in my vehicle. It did kill everyone except me. I should have died. The physics said I should have died. But I didn't. Instead, I woke up in a field hospital missing both legs, unable to move, staring at a future that every medical professional told me meant wheelchair, lifetime disability, manageable pain with the right medications. They told me to be grateful. They told me to accept. They told me to adjust my expectations. But they didn't know about the promise. They didn't know about Michael. And they definitely didn't know how stubborn a father can be when his son's entire understanding of who his daddy is depends on him keeping his word. The first 2 surgeries happened in Afghanistan. I don't remember them. They airlifted me to Germany for the next 3, emergency procedures to stop infections, to remove dead tissue, to save what they could. I was unconscious for most of it. The morphine dreams were worse than being awake. I kept seeing Michael's face, kept hearing him ask when I was coming home, kept trying to tell him I was sorry, but no words would come out. They flew me to Walter Reed Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland, on Christmas Eve 2017. Angela met me there with Michael. I'd been gone for 4 months of surgeries and recovery. Michael was 5 years old. He'd grown 2 inches since I last saw him in person. When they wheeled me into the family room, he ran toward me, then stopped. The look on his face, I can still see it. Confusion. Fear. This thing in the wheelchair didn't look like Daddy. I had dropped from 195 pounds to 142. My face was gaunt. Both legs ended in bandaged stumps. I had tubes and wires connected to me. I looked like something from a nightmare. But then I smiled. I said, "Hey, buddy." And his face changed. He knew my voice. He climbed carefully onto my lap, so careful not to hurt me, and he put his little hands on my face and said, "You're home now. You can rest." I held him, and I felt every promise I'd ever made to him pressing down like a physical weight. That night, after Angela put Michael to bed, she sat next to my hospital bed and held my hand. She didn't cry. She's stronger than I'll ever be. She just said, "The doctors told me what to expect. They told me it's going to be wheelchairs and prosthetics and years of therapy. They told me you might never walk again. I told them they don't know you very well." She was right. They didn't. Because I didn't survive that blast just to half live. I survived because Michael needed a father who kept his promises, and I'd made a very specific promise. I would walk him to his first day of kindergarten in September 2018. That gave me 9 months, 11 surgeries, and absolutely no medical precedent for what I was about to attempt. Surgery number 3 at Walter Reed focused on my pelvis, 14 fractures. They'd been held together with external fixators, metal rods drilled through my hip bones and connected to a frame outside my body. The contraption looked like something from a medieval torture chamber. The orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Patricia Chen, explained that they needed to replace the external frame with internal titanium plates and screws, but the bone quality was poor. Too much trauma. Too much infection during those first critical weeks. She said the word I'd hear dozens of times over the next 3 years. Unfortunately. Unfortunately, the bone density isn't sufficient. Unfortunately, the infection spread deeper than we thought. Unfortunately, there's significant nerve damage. Unfortunately, the prognosis for walking is extremely poor. I listened to her list the complications and the probabilities, and then I asked the only question that mattered. What do I need to do to walk again? She looked at me like I hadn't been listening. Mr. Martinez, with this level of bilateral amputation, combined with pelvic trauma, standing is the best realistic outcome. Weight-bearing walking is. What do I need to do? I repeated. She sighed. Even with the most advanced prosthetics, your body would need to completely relearn balance, would need core strength we typically see in Olympic athletes, would need pain tolerance beyond what most people possess. And that's assuming we can get you to a point where prosthetics are even viable, which, given the infection history and the short residual limbs, is far from guaranteed. So it's possible, theoretically. But then that's what we're doing. Doctor Chen tried to explain statistical realities, medical literature, case studies. But I'd already made my decision. See, everyone kept talking about what was realistic, what was probable, what made medical sense. They were thinking about averages and outcomes and statistics. I was thinking about a little boy who drew pictures of his daddy standing up. Sometimes the difference between impossible and possible is just refusing to accept the word no. Surgery number 3 took 8 hours. They removed the external fixators and installed a complex network of titanium plates and screws to hold my pelvis together. The pain afterward was transcendent, beyond description, beyond morphine, beyond anything I'd felt before. But I'd learned something in those early weeks of consciousness. Pain is just information. It's your body telling you something's wrong. It's not a stop sign. It's a warning. And I was done listening to warnings. Physical therapy started 3 weeks after surgery number 3. The PT, a former Marine named Jackson, wheeled me into the therapy room and said, "We're going to work on upper body strength and core stabilization. Get you independent with transfers, wheelchair mobility, basic daily activities." I said, "No, we're going to work on standing." He blinked. "You can't stand. You don't have legs." I have stumps, and I have a pelvis held together with titanium. Let's use them. Even with prosthetics, you're months away from... I don't have months, I have 8 months and 2 weeks. My son starts kindergarten September 4th. I'm walking him to school that day. Jackson stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, "You're insane." "Yes. This is going to hurt worse than anything you've experienced." "I know. You're going to fail, repeatedly, publicly, painfully." "I know." He smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who recognized crazy when he saw it and decided to embrace it. "All right then, let's do something stupid." What the doctors and the manuals and the standard protocols didn't account for was rage. Not anger, rage. The pure, focused, sustainable kind that burns cold instead of hot. Every time Michael asked on our video calls when I'd be better, every time I saw Angela's exhausted face after another 14-hour day of managing everything alone, every time I woke up from a nightmare where I was stuck in that wheelchair forever, that rage grew. It was fuel. It was motivation. It was the thing that pushed me through barriers that medical science said were impossible. Jackson understood. He'd lost his left leg to an IED in Fallujah in 2006. He knew what it took, so he threw out the standard PT protocol and built something new, something specifically designed for someone with my injuries and my timeline, something the medical review board would never have approved if they'd known about it. We called it the stupid plan. Catchy, right? The stupid plan had 3 phases. Phase 1. Build core strength to the point where I could support my upper body weight without collapsing. Phase 2. Learn to balance on prosthetics designed for stumps that were technically too short and damaged for standard prosthetics. Phase 3. Walk. Simple, right? Except Phase 1 alone should have taken 6 months. I had 8 months total, so we compressed everything. We pushed limits. We ignored pain thresholds. We did things that made other therapists shake their heads and walk away. Jackson had me doing exercises that no double amputee with pelvic fractures should attempt. Plank holds while my body screamed. Ab rollouts that tore through pain meds. Resistance training that left me vomiting from the agony. 3 hours a day, every day. No breaks, no mercy. By month 2, I could hold a plank for 60 seconds. Doesn't sound impressive until you consider that my core had to work overtime to compensate for having no legs, for having a pelvis held together with hardware, for having nerve damage that meant half my remaining muscle mass didn't communicate properly with my brain. Other patients in the therapy room would watch us. Some looked inspired, most looked horrified. One guy, another amputee, single leg below knee, said to me, "Man, you're pushing too hard. You're going to hurt yourself worse." I said, "I'm already hurt worse, now I'm getting better." He shook his head. "That's not how this works," and he was wrong. That's exactly how it works, because healing isn't a passive process. It's not something that happens to you while you wait patiently. It's something you fight for. It's something you choose every single day, every single rep, every single moment when your body is screaming stop and you say not yet. Surgery number 4 happened in month 3. Infection in my right residual limb. They had to remove more bone, cut higher, clean out necrotic tissue. It set me back 5 weeks, 5 weeks I didn't have. When I came out of recovery, Angela was there. She looked tired. She looked scared. She said, "David, maybe you should slow down. Maybe the doctors are right. Maybe walking by September isn't realistic. Michael will understand." I said, "No, he won't. He's 5. He doesn't understand impossible. He just knows Daddy promised. And I keep my promises." She kissed my forehead. "I know you do. That's why I love you. That's also why I'm terrified I'm going to lose you to this obsession." "You won't lose me. I'm right here." "No," she said quietly. "You're in that goal. You're in September 4th. You're in a promise you made before you knew what it would cost. When was the last time you were actually here, with me, with Michael, in this moment?" I didn't have an answer, because she was right. Every moment I wasn't in therapy, I was thinking about therapy. Every conversation was filtered through the lens of my goal. Every breath was focused on September 4th. I'd become the promise. I'd stopped being the person who made it. But I couldn't stop. Because stopping meant admitting defeat, and I didn't survive that explosion to be defeated by recovery. Surgery number 5. Left residual limb revision. Number 6. Right residual limb revision. Number 7. Pelvic hardware adjustment because the original placement was causing nerve impingement. They happened rapid fire over 6 weeks. Each one meant 2 weeks minimum of reduced therapy. Each one meant setbacks and pain and starting over. But each one also meant we were getting closer to prosthetics. By month 6, I'd burned through 14 different pain medications. Nothing worked anymore. The nerve damage was too severe, too widespread. The phantom pain in my missing legs was constant. It felt like someone was twisting knives into feet that weren't there. The real pain in my residual limbs was worse. And the pain in my pelvis, in my spine, in every muscle that was working overtime to compensate for my injuries, was a baseline I'd learned to think of as normal. Dr. Chen called me into her office. She had my chart in front of her. She said, "David, I need you to understand something. You've had 7 major surgeries in 6 months. Your body needs time to heal. The infection risk alone should have killed you twice. Your pain levels are off the charts, and you're pushing yourself in therapy beyond anything I've ever seen, beyond anything that's medically advisable. I'm concerned you're doing permanent damage in pursuit of a goal that might not be achievable." "Might not be," I said. "That's different from definitely not. The statistics. I don't care about statistics. I care about my son." She leaned forward. "What if you push yourself to permanent paralysis? What if you damage your spine beyond repair? What if you die on the table during surgery number 8 because your body can't take anymore? What does that do to your son?" That question hit harder than any pain I'd felt, because she was right to ask it. I was so focused on keeping my promise that I hadn't considered the cost of failing catastrophically. What if I pushed too hard and ended up in worse shape? What if I traded the wheelchair for a coffin? But then I thought about Michael's drawing, me and Daddy when he comes home, 2 stick figures both standing. I said, "If I don't try, I'm already gone. The man who made that promise is already dead, and I'm just a broken thing in a chair pretending to be him. My son doesn't need a father who's alive. He needs a father who keeps his word. So yes, I might fail. I might make it worse. But I have to try, because trying is the only thing I have left." Dr. Chen looked at me for a long time. Then she said, "Surgery number 8 is scheduled for next Tuesday. We're going to do final revisions on both residual limbs to prepare them for prosthetics. This is your last chance to reconsider the timeline." "I'm not reconsidering. I know," she said. "That's what scares me." Surgery number 8 was the one where I woke up too early. That drilling sound. That realization that I could feel everything. They caught it quickly, put me back under. But those 30 seconds of consciousness during surgery changed something in me. I'd felt them working on me. I'd felt the violation of my body being cut and drilled and modified. And I realized I'd stopped thinking of my body as mine. It had become a project, a mission, a thing to be fixed and optimized and pushed. I'd lost the connection to it. When I woke up in recovery, Angela was there again. So was Michael. He'd missed 2 days of school to be there for the surgery. He was sitting in a chair drawing, so focused on his paper that he didn't notice I was awake. Angela saw my eyes open and squeezed my hand. "Hey," she whispered. "Hey, how do you feel?" Like I'd been hit by a truck, run over by a tank and dropped from an airplane, but I said, "I'm okay. What's he drawing?" She smiled. "Look for yourself." Michael heard my voice and jumped up. He was so careful climbing onto the bed, so aware of my injuries. He showed me his drawing. It was us, me and him. But this time, I wasn't just standing. I was kneeling down, and he was hugging me. The caption said, "Daddy came home." Not, "Daddy will come home." Not, "Daddy's coming home." Daddy came home. Past tense, like it had already happened, like it was already real. He said, "Mom said the surgery went good. That means you'll get your robot legs soon, right?" "Yeah, buddy. Robot legs. And then you'll teach me to ride my bike?" "That's the plan." He studied my face seriously. "Does it hurt a lot?" I could have lied, should have lied, but something about that moment demanded honesty. Yeah, it hurts a lot. Are you scared? Sometimes. He nodded like that made sense. Me too. But Mom says you're the bravest person she knows, so if you're scared but you do it anyway, that's okay. Out of the mouths of 5-year-olds. He'd just summed up everything I'd been too proud to admit. I was terrified. Terrified I'd fail. Terrified I'd die. Terrified I'd let him down. But I was doing it anyway, because courage isn't the absence of fear. It's fear plus commitment. It's being scared and doing it anyway. That night after Michael fell asleep on the fold-out couch in my room and Angela had gone to get coffee, I stared at the ceiling and did the math. 3 months until September 4th. Still 3 more surgeries scheduled. Each would cost me at least 2 weeks of reduced therapy. The prosthetics weren't even ready yet. The timeline was impossible. Everyone had been right. I couldn't do it. And in that moment I had to decide. Was I going to adjust the promise or die trying to keep it? I thought about Michael's drawing. Daddy came home. Not Daddy walked me to school. Just came home. He'd already accepted me as I was. He'd already forgiven me for being broken. The only person who couldn't forgive me was me. But I also knew, if I gave up now, I'd spend the rest of my life wondering, what if I'd pushed harder? What if I'd ignored the doctors just a little longer? What if I'd been willing to risk everything for that one moment? I couldn't live with that wonder. So I made a new promise to myself. I would attempt the impossible. And if I failed, I'd fail completely, catastrophically, with no excuses and no regrets. Because Michael deserved a father who bet everything on keeping his word, even if that bet bankrupted him. Surgery number 9, spinal nerve block to manage the phantom pain. Number 10, infection revision on the left residual limb that required another bone removal. Number 11, final prosthetic preparation surgery on both limbs. 3 surgeries in 8 weeks. Each one a risk, each one a setback, each one another reason to quit. I didn't quit. They fitted me for prosthetics in July. 8 weeks before kindergarten started, the prosthetist, Dr. Raymond Pierce, was a double amputee himself, both legs below knee from a motorcycle accident. He understood some of what I was facing, but he'd never worked with someone with my level of injury trying to do what I was attempting. He examined my residual limbs and said bluntly, "These are too short, too damaged. The bone quality is poor. The soft tissue coverage is minimal. There's extensive nerve damage and scar tissue. Standard prosthetics won't work. You need specialized sockets with complex suspension systems. Even then, the likelihood of you bearing full weight, let alone walking, is extremely low. Make them anyway. It's going to hurt. Constantly. The sockets will create pressure points that will be agony. You'll get blisters, skin breakdown, infections. Most amputees with your level of injury can't tolerate prosthetics for more than an hour or 2 a day. You're talking about walking. That's exactly what I'm talking about." He sighed. "You're out of your mind. Everyone keeps saying that. Make the prosthetics." He made them. Custom carbon fiber sockets designed to distribute weight as evenly as possible over my short residual limbs. Microprocessor-controlled knees that would automatically adjust to terrain and prevent falls. Specialized feet designed for stability over speed. The whole setup cost more than a luxury car. Insurance fought it. Doctor Chen had to personally intervene with a letter explaining the medical necessity, even though she didn't believe I'd succeed. When they arrived, Jackson wheeled me into the therapy room. The prosthetics sat on a table like gleaming instruments of torture. Black carbon fiber, titanium joints, high-tech feet that looked like something from a science fiction movie. "Ready?" Jackson asked. "No." "Good. Because if you were ready, you wouldn't understand what you're about to attempt." They fitted the prosthetics. The moment weight touched my residual limbs through the sockets, pain exploded through me. White-hot, all-consuming, worse than any surgery. I gasped. Jackson said, "That's normal. Your stumps have to toughen up. This is just the beginning." He wasn't kidding. They had me stand in the parallel bars, just stand, with most of my weight supported by my arms. I stood for 15 seconds before the pain forced me back down to the wheelchair. 15 seconds. I needed to walk for 20 minutes to get Michael from our apartment to his school. The math was brutal, but I'd done brutal before. We trained, every day, hours in the prosthetics, learning to distribute weight, learning to balance without legs, learning to trust the microprocessor knees to catch me when I fell. And I fell. God, did I fall. 47 times in the first week. Each fall, a risk to my healing pelvis, to my residual limbs, to everything we'd spent a year building. But each fall also taught me something. How not to balance, how not to shift weight, how not to trust my body's instincts that were built for having legs I no longer had. By week 3 in prosthetics, I could stand for 5 minutes. By week 5, I could take 3 shuffling steps between the parallel bars. By week 7, I could walk 20 feet with a walker, but it was ugly, it was slow, it was painful to watch. And September 4th was 7 days away. Jackson pulled me aside after therapy. "David, you've done the impossible. You're walking. That's more than anyone thought you could do, but walking Michael to school, that's a different challenge. That's distance. That's uneven pavement. That's a 5-year-old who might run ahead or need you to move quickly. I don't think you're ready. I don't care if I'm ready. I'm doing it. You could fall in front of his whole class, in front of all the other parents. You could embarrass him." That stopped me. I hadn't considered that. What if my attempt to keep my promise actually hurt him? What if the other kids made fun of him because his dad fell down? What if he was embarrassed instead of proud? I went home that night and asked Angela, "Tell me the truth. Should I do this?" She thought for a long time. "Do you want my honest answer, or do you want me to support whatever you decide?" "Honest. I think you should walk him to the car. Let me drive you both to school, and walk him from the parking lot to the classroom. That's 50 feet instead of 4 blocks. It's achievable, it's safe, it still keeps your promise. You'll be walking him to school." It was the reasonable answer, the smart answer, the answer that protected everyone, but it wasn't the promise I'd made. I'd promised to walk him to kindergarten, not part way, not the easy part, all of it. I said, "I have to try the whole thing." "I know," she said. "I just wanted you to know there's another option, one that won't destroy you if you fail. If I fail doing the whole thing, at least I failed trying. If I succeed doing the half thing, I'll always wonder if I could have done more." She kissed me. "You're an idiot, but you're my idiot. So let's make sure you don't die attempting this." September 3rd, the day before kindergarten started, I did a full practice run. Angela drove me and Michael to his school. We parked 4 blocks away. I got out of the car, stood up on my prosthetics, and started walking. Michael held my hand. It was the first time I'd held his hand while standing in almost 2 years. He had to reach up to take it. I'd forgotten how small his hand was, how fragile, how much trust he was putting in me just by holding on. We walked. I focused on each step. Left prosthetic forward. Shift weight. Right prosthetic forward. Shift weight. Don't think about the pain. Don't think about the blisters already forming on my residual limbs. Don't think about how my pelvis is screaming with each impact. Just walk. 1 block. Michael was talking about his teacher, about the classroom he'd visited during orientation, about the backpack he'd picked out. I was barely hearing him. All my concentration was on not falling. 2 blocks. I stumbled, caught myself on a street sign. Michael looked up, worried. "You okay, Daddy?" "I'm okay, just checking our direction." He smiled, bought the lie. We kept walking. 3 blocks. My vision was starting to tunnel from pain. I was sweating through my shirt despite the cool morning air. Each step was agony. Each step was impossible. Each step happened anyway. 4 blocks. We reached the school. I'd done it. I'd walked him to school. But then I saw the stairs. 12 concrete steps up to the front entrance. Nobody had mentioned stairs. I'd practiced on flat ground. I'd never attempted stairs in prosthetics. I looked at those 12 steps and thought, this is where I fail. This is where impossible proves itself. Jackson appeared from behind us. He'd followed in his car without telling me. He said quietly, "You don't have to do the stairs. Walking him here is enough." But Michael was already bounding up the first few steps, then turning back to wait for me. His face was pure excitement, pure trust. He believed I could do this. Who was I to tell him he was wrong? I grabbed the railing, lifted my right prosthetic onto the first step, pulled myself up, left prosthetic to the same step. Both feet together like a child learning stairs for the first time. Right foot to the second step. Pull. Left foot to the second step. Michael was 3 steps ahead now, waiting. Come on, Daddy, you can do it. Step 3. Step 4. Each one took everything I had. Each one felt like it might be the one where I finally broke. Step 5. Step 6. Halfway there. My prosthetics were slipping in the sockets from all the sweat. My arms were shaking from supporting so much of my weight on the railing. My pelvis felt like it was coming apart, despite all the titanium holding it together. Step 7. Step 8. Michael reached the top, turned around. His face changed from excitement to concern. Daddy, are you okay? I couldn't speak. All I could do was keep climbing. Step 9. Step 10. I could hear other parents arriving behind us, could hear their whispers as they realized what they were seeing, could feel their pity and their doubt. Step 11. My left prosthetic slipped. I started to fall backward. Jackson caught me from behind, steadied me without making it obvious, gave me just enough support to regain my balance. Step 12. I reached the top, stood next to Michael. He grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the entrance, completely unaware of how close I'd come to failing right there in front of everyone. We walked through the front door, down the hallway, to his classroom. His teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, was greeting students at the door. She smiled at Michael, then looked at me. Her expression was complicated, recognition of what she was seeing, trying not to stare, uncertain how to react. Michael said, Ms. Rodriguez, this is my dad. He walked me to school just like he promised. She met my eyes. It's wonderful to meet you, Mr. Martinez. Michael has told us all about you. I shook her hand, managed to stay upright, managed to smile, managed to pretend this was normal, easy, not the culmination of 2 years of hell. Michael hugged me. Will you pick me up too? I'll be here. He ran into the classroom. I turned around, walked back down the hallway, focusing on each step so I wouldn't collapse in front of all these parents and children, made it outside, looked at those 12 stairs going down. Jackson appeared next to me again. I've got the car right there. You can sit down now. You did it. No, I managed to say. Have to walk back. That's the promise. David, the promise was walk him to kindergarten, not walk him there and get a ride back. All of it. So I walked back down those stairs, each one its own special agony, walked the 4 blocks back to where Angela was waiting with the car. By the time I reached her, I couldn't feel anything below my waist. The prosthetics were slipping so much they were barely staying on. I had blood soaking through my shorts from burst blisters on my residual limbs. But I'd done it. I'd kept the promise. I collapsed into the wheelchair Angela had waiting. She drove me straight to Walter Reed. The damage from that morning required 2 weeks of wound care and no prosthetics. Dr. Chen came to see me that evening. She didn't say I told you so, but I could see it in her eyes. She examined the wounds and said, David, you did something remarkable today. You should be proud, but you also nearly destroyed 2 years of surgical work in one morning. We've talked about this before, but now I need you to hear it. You can't keep pushing like this. Your body has limits. I know, I said. I reached them today. And what did you learn? I thought about Michael's hand in mine, about his face when he realized I'd actually kept the promise, about how he'd run into that classroom with complete confidence because his father had shown him that promises matter. I learned that some promises are worth more than anything else. Looking back now, 7 years later, I can see what everyone else saw then. I was pushing too hard. I was risking too much. I was obsessed to the point of self-destruction. And they were right, but they were also wrong. Because that obsession, that willingness to risk everything, that refusal to accept the word impossible, it gave me my life back. Not the life I had before. That's gone forever. But a different life. One where Michael knows his father keeps his promises, where Angela knows her husband won't give up, where I know I can survive anything because I already survived the worst. I still have chronic pain, every day. The phantom sensations never went away. I've had 6 more surgeries since that September morning. Infections, socket revisions, hardware adjustments. I'll have more, but I can walk, not well, not without pain, not like I used to. But I can walk. Michael is 12 now. We fish together. We play catch. I taught him to ride a bike, had to hold onto the car door handle for balance while I ran next to him, but I did it. He doesn't remember a lot about those early years, about the hospitals and the surgeries and the pain. What he remembers is that I kept my promise. That's what matters. The doctors were right. What I attempted shouldn't have been possible. The statistics were against me. The medical literature didn't support it. Every rational analysis said I would fail. But there's something the statistics don't measure: the power of a promise made to your child. The strength you find when you have no other choice. The impossible things that become possible when the alternative is unacceptable. I spent 3 years and 11 surgeries fighting to stand for my son. I'd do it again. I'd do it 100 times, because some things are worth fighting for beyond reason, beyond medicine, beyond possibility. And your children are all of those things. If you're reading this, and you're facing your own impossible challenge, whether it's an injury, an illness, a loss, or just life beating you down, I want you to know, you're stronger than you think. The human body and spirit can endure things that seem unendurable, can adapt to impossibilities, can achieve the unachievable, but only if you refuse to accept defeat, only if you find that one reason, that one promise, that one person, that one goal that matters more than the pain. For me, it was Michael. What's yours?